We are live. Happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How ya all doing? How's everyone's week going? Apparently it's Valentine's Day in the US. I don't know if you all celebrate anywhere else, but happy Valentine's Day. I put on my red, my color for you all. I wear very little colors. I'm sure you have noticed. I do try to bring some color onto our live streams, but I'm such a like black and cream and gray wearing human. So I put my red on for Valentine's Day. You have to let me know. Are you someone who celebrates Valentine's Day? Are you anti Valentine's Day? Are you Galentine's Day? I personally am very neutral around the day, but sometimes then I forget that it's a thing. So, trying to bring some of that spirit. Not what we're talking about at all today. I know we could easily have done a live stream around self love or something like that because self love is so essential to your business and making money. But we're going to chat GPT and what this has to do with you, what this means for our industry. We're going to dive into all of this today. And if you are like joining this and you're like, well, what the heck are you talking about? I'm going to explain what I'm talking about. We're going to dive into what this even is, why this is important for us to have as a conversation as business owners. I've got some mindset stuff to talk about, and then I want to talk some strategy with you today. Before we dive into our conversation, we've got announcements as we always do. I actually need to see, we always give a giveaway, and I'm trying to actually see what are we giving away today. We are giving away, where is my email? Okay, we are giving away a copy of content that stands out and sells today. So if you join live, if you say hi, leave me a comment, leave me an emoji, let me know that you're here watching now or on the replay. We will pick one winner for a copy of my self-study course, Content That Stands Out and Sells. I've had people take this course and make their first 10-figure month and then hire me afterwards and tell me that it was the course that helped them do that. So it's an oldie but a goodie, and you can comment anyway. I feel like sometimes these giveaways almost make you feel like you can't comment. So even if you won these before or you've purchased it or this is something you don't need, I'd love to have a conversation dialogue what we're talking about today. So feel free to leave comments anyway. If you don't want, if you win, then we'll pass it on to someone else. We can give the giveaway to someone else, but I always want to make sure I'm thanking you for spending your time with me, for having these conversations. It is one of my favorite things aside from hanging with my clients and supporting them. Getting to hang with you every week and have these conversations is one of my favorite things. So business gifts are my business love language. I want to be able to give those back to you. That is our announcement, and let's dive into our conversation. So if you got my email, what I said is, because I was sent an email about the live stream, is that last week, so when I wrote this was probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, ChatGPT helped me fix my washing machine in about 2 minutes. And I think there's such an interesting conversation to be had here. So love ChatGPT, hate ChatGPT, wonder what the heck I'm talking about or how it could help me fix my washing machine. That's what we're diving into today. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation, because I know so often we're talking about mindset things and we're talking about messaging and marketing and sales or the clarity around it or the action around it. I think a topic like ChatGPT is so important and relevant for us as business owners because what I have seen as someone who studies business, not just our online space, not just what it means as a coach to book clients in this present moment, but I love to study business. I worked in the advertising industry before and in the entertainment industry before moving here. And I just enjoy looking at what makes businesses work or not work. And what we have seen historically are some of the businesses that were really big and booming that went out of business did so because they failed to stay up to date with technology and to remain relevant, not only with technology, but that's why I've been harping on messaging so much. And so I think that's why this is a conversation as business owners that's really important for us to have and at least have awareness around, even if ChatGPT is something you never use in your business. I think it is important to have knowledge around. I actually used ChatGPT to pull up some examples of companies. I'll share that in a moment. But I realize as I'm saying all of this, there's going to be someone watching now or later on the replay who's like, Kim, I don't even know what the heck you're talking about. I know I had a conversation with a friend recently who's a business owner, and she was like, let's say, I don't even know what this thing is. So ChatGPT is hey, Stephanie, nice to have you on. We are talking ChatGPT. So if you don't know what ChatGPT is, and if you do, Steph, I would love to hear from you. If you love it, hate it, are indifferent, don't know what the heck I'm talking about, we're going to talk about all of that today. And just since you're joining us now, we're going to talk about what it is, some mindset around it, why it's important for us as business owners, and then really some strategy that I think is important, whether you use ChatGPT or not, that I think is just really important. What I see, I don't have a crystal ball, but really where I'm seeing our industry going right now. Happy Valentine's Day to you as well. I wore my red for you. Red, I still have to put some black, red and black. So ChatGPT, if you don't know what this is, it is AI we have had AI before. There are other platforms. One of my friends was showing me some really cool platforms that I didn't even know about, but it is a newer form of AI. And what's really cool about it is it learns with you. So it has knowledge up to 2021, I believe. And I've been playing around with it, and it literally helped me fix my washing machine in 2 minutes the other day. It was broken. I put some questions in, I put some directives in. It gave me some information. That didn't work. I put in some other specifications. It told me what to do literally within 2 minutes. I got the information. I was able to, it was a really simple fix, but I wouldn't have seen that fix. I probably would have ended up calling someone and spending a lot of money on something that was like the silliest thing ever with our washing machine. So it's really cool because it is an AI in terms of think like Google in terms of it can pull up all of this information. It is not connected to the internet from my belief. So after 2021, it's not like it can just scour the internet for information. It's been programmed with information. But what is really fascinating, and I need to say this as I'm talking through this. I am not an expert on ChatGPT. I am an expert on business and your mindset and your marketing, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how the two relate. But from my non-expert knowledge of ChatGPT, what's really cool is it learns with you. And so as you're using it, you can teach it to learn with you. And it's sort of like the usage of it gets better the more you teach it how to support you. I really think of it is AI, but it's AI if you think about like bringing on a team member. Your team member is as supportive as you are in supporting your team member to support you, right? Your team can support you to the degree that you have SOPs, that you're able to communicate, that you're able to give clear directives and feedback that help someone to support you. And that's how I see ChatGPT in terms of, yes, it's AI. It has really fascinating applications. Then I want to see these comments from Steph, but really interesting applications that you can use, for example, repurposing your content, or you can plug in, you can even ask it, you can put in say what your business is and who your ideal client is and ask it to tell you what are some objections your ideal client might have, right? Or I've put in a piece of content, I'm like, rewrite this more persuasively, or rewrite this in my voice, or here's my voice, I've trained it to learn my voice, like rewrite this post again, like write another post like it. So you can teach it, and then when it gives you an answer, when it does something for you, you can then continue to give it feedback. No, I don't like that. Yes, I do like this. Try it again and do it this way. And I'm giving you like a really janky explanation on how to use it. But that's what I think is really fascinating about this as a tool is it's not simply I can search and have it as a search engine. I mean, it's fascinating. It can write code. I have a friend who's using it who actually just did a training on this in another group. She is, I would say, more of an expert on how to use it. And she's using it to write code. It's really interesting, the application for us as business owners and outside of business. Like you can, I think my coach has used it to put in her like dietary needs, and it spit out a menu and like a full shopping list. So it's really great. And what I'm particularly interested in with it is that it can learn with you and you can teach it. So think of it like a team member. You can teach it to support you better and better as a tool. Okay, Steph says, don't know what that is. Nice. Really interesting. So if you look right, Stephanie, I would recommend, hear me out on our conversation today, but check it out afterwards. And what's neat is there's a free open platform that's free. It does get very clogged up. I have invested in the Plus. I think it's like $20 a month, so that I can access it whenever I want, but there is an absolutely free version of it. So what I would say to everyone and what I'm recommending to my clients is, even if you're like, I don't like AI, and we're going to talk about this in a second, and like all the noise is coming up in your brain, like, I think this is stupid. I would invite everyone to at least go and try it so that you have a working understanding of what it is, and so you can make an informed decision, like or not like, use or not use in your business, as opposed to just deciding because it's something new and foreign and therefore our immediate reaction is not to like it, to decide that's why you don't like something. Because, and what I think, let me go back to the implications for us as a business a little bit. I think what's interesting here with ChatGPT is it is a little bit different than a new social media platform. You know, it's not like TikTok, or it's not like when Clubhouse popped up in terms of like, is this like the new trendy thing that I should hop on or not? I wouldn't really think of ChatGPT as a trend as much as it is a tool. So it's a little more like when Canva came around, right? You can like or not like Canva as a tool, but it is more a tool, not a trendy platform to get onto. And it's a tool that, as a business owner, if you're someone who uses graphics, might be a valuable tool to understand how to use or how to have someone on your team use. So hopefully that difference makes sense. I see it as a tool, not a platform, because I think some people are seeing this more as like, well, this is just the trendy new platform and I don't want to hop on a bandwagon. And I think this is the complete opposite of a bandwagon. This is more, again, a tool that is only going to get improved with time. And even if this were a trendy platform, I said this probably with Clubhouse. I was not a Clubhouse fan. That was not my jam. I have clients who blew up on it and loved Clubhouse, right? But the reason I was able to speak very clearly to understanding why Clubhouse wasn't for me and didn't make sense for my business and how we like to create content and repurpose it is I got on Clubhouse and I tested it out and I tried it out and I was like, cool, this is a great platform. Now I can speak to it as a business owner. Now I can support other clients with it. Now I can make an educated decision and I can also understand why it doesn't make sense for me and my business. And so I would invite everyone, again, with anything, before you jump to a conclusion, just like, we are business owners, we test. That is the whole nature of business. And with ChatGPT, again, even if you never use this in your business, I think what is the conversation I want us to be thinking about and having as business owners is understanding that as businesses, we continue to evolve, our industries continue to evolve, and technology continues to evolve. And look, you don't have to be the business that has all the technology. And this is what I was saying at the beginning of the live stream. I like to study businesses, not just our online coaching space or our online personal development space. I like to study what makes a business work, what makes a brand work. And if I look at businesses outside of our space and we take a look at historically, what are the businesses that are like quadrillion, billion-dollar businesses, and what are the businesses that were thriving and then kind of no longer exist anymore? What were some of the factors that help someone thrive and that have a business go out of business or go bankrupt? And obviously there's more than one thing at play, but what we see is companies that fail to innovate, companies that fail to stay relevant. Again, this is why I've been harping on your messaging and your positioning this month. Companies that fail to stay with technology and update themselves with technology tend to have a harder time. This I pulled up from ChatGPT because I think this is actually just cool for you to see an application of it. This is still my content. This is still my thought leadership. This is still my brain. And I used ChatGPT to pull up some stats for me and so that I could share these with you. And so these are some examples of companies that failed to keep up with new technology and as a result lost their competitive edge or even went out of business. This is ChatGPT. Thank you for giving me this information. And again, what I want to share here is I had to be the really great user here who understood what I wanted ChatGPT to tell me. I couldn't say, write me a live stream on what to talk. I mean, maybe I could. Maybe it would have told me what to talk about around ChatGPT, but I understood this is one of the conversations I want to have. And so I knew the question for it to ask me. And so it gave me some examples. So Kodak was, here's what it's telling me, a dominant force in the photography industry for many years, but they failed to recognize the potential of digital photography and didn't adapt to the new technology. So I think that's just a great example for us to see, and how you could see if before we all now are so used to digital photos, right? My iPhone right here, right? I'm so used to this, but we could see how if we were a photography company before that all came out, where it'd be really easy, like, digital photos, who's ever gonna want that? That's just so like weird. That's just so cheating. Like, a real photographer uses film. A real photographer knows how to use the f-stops. A real photographer would never use that. We're going to hold ourselves to a higher standard. That's cheating. All of the noise I'm hearing with ChatGPT, right? And what we're seeing is because they didn't adapt and they kind of failed to do that as quickly, that led to their eventual bankruptcy. This is not to create a doomsday story. This is not to say everyone needs to rush to get onto ChatGPT, but it is to invite everyone's brain to think about and to notice some of the stories that come up when new things become available to all of us. Because what happens as humans, right? We avoid fear, we seek pleasure. I talk about this all the time. We are not wired for success, we're wired for survival. Our brains, when we hear, here is something new, here is something that hasn't been done before. Our brain is like, this is new, this is a threat, and it starts to kick up stories. And I think with business, when something like ChatGPT comes around, I'm hearing this from clients, right? The noise we hear is this is going to take away people's jobs. This is cheating. This is going to take away IP. This is going to change the whole business. Who would ever even use that? How could you even use that? There's just a lot of noise that comes up. And I think we just want to take a pause and say some of that might be true, and any tool is neutral, right? If I have a hammer, that tool is neutral. If I use Canva, that tool is neutral, right? The tool itself is neutral. And a lot of times what is getting kicked up for us when there's a new tool says more about our own fear, our own story that we want to take a look at, as opposed to the tool itself. And it's really often so much in how you use that tool. I'm going to return to the mindset piece of this in a moment, because I think there's a really big piece there. Whether or not you ever, I'm not interested if you ever use ChatGPT. It's not like I've stock in this. And I think there's some really interesting things on the mindset side of this. But let me just, from this first part of the conversation here, let me just read a couple more examples of those companies that didn't stay relevant with technology. Blockbuster, I think, is one of the most famous. And I've been talking about this when I speak about messaging and positioning, but Blockbuster was one. Am I aging myself? Does anybody else remember getting movies from Blockbuster? I remember when they didn't exist and they became that thing, and it was like what you did every Friday. You went and got your movie from Blockbuster. And they failed to rise and adapt when digital streaming came out. And so what happens? They led to their eventual bankruptcy. Now Netflix is the thing. And Netflix is such a great example of a company that came. Does everybody remember Netflix when it started? I used to get Netflix was like way ahead of their age, and they used to send those DVDs in the mail. Do you remember that like little mailing thing? And Blockbuster like tried to keep up, but Netflix now, it's not like we get stuff in the mail. Netflix has continued to evolve with technology. It has continued to evolve with what, as humans, what their consumers want to pay for, which is now I have Netflix on my TV, right? I pay a subscription. I pay to watch it on there. Now they've added to that, and they're creating their own content and their television shows and their movies. They're continuing to adapt and to evolve and to remain relevant. And so I think that's, again, whether or not you use ChatGPT or not, I think as business owners, this is something we just really want to be mindful of, is where is our own fear? Where are our own stories? But this is what's working right now. And I'm so scared something bad is going to happen. Where is that keeping us really close-minded and from looking at, yes, but where are we going? What are people looking for? What are people paying for? And this is both, again, I don't care if you use this as a tool. I don't think like if you use ChatGPT as a tool or not, that's going to make or break your business. I really don't. So don't hear that from this conversation. I do think the mindset behind why you try it or not is really interesting to take a look at. And I think more than anything, what we're going to talk on the strategy side of things in a moment is I do think this is a place for everyone to look at, where have I stayed really fixed in my business growth, with my positioning, with my messaging, with what I'm talking about, with what my people want, and where have I like really stayed stuck in that, instead of being open-minded enough to see that things might pivot and adapt, and that really the way for me to thrive is to continue to do that. Sarah says, I miss Blockbuster. Yes, on Sunset. That's exactly what I was thinking about. I've been picking up movies, just saying LOL. Stephanie says, me too. I literally was thinking about the one, Sarah and I both lived in LA. I was literally thinking about that Blockbuster. I think, didn't it become like a gas station or something? I don't live there anymore, but it's so funny. I was literally thinking that one. And I think it's such a great, again, this is not to freak anyone out. I don't think our industry is going through this like massive, massive change, but I do think these are things for us, again, as business owners, just to think like, hey, I'm a business owner. My responsibility is to at least be aware of what's going on technologically, what's going on in the world, what are some of these shifts and changes, how is this affecting, not affecting my business, is there an opportunity for me to adapt, how is this affecting my clients, like can I at least be a part of this conversation instead of burying my head in the sand because I'm freaked out, or because I'm worried about, what that means for me to change, or because I'm just so I'm all about being sold on your work and on your message and on your model and all. That's like literally what I teach my clients, right? And I think we just have to be really fixed and sold with that availability to be open-minded, and maybe there's something new and different. This is maybe not the best example because we're talking about technology, but Blockbuster, just in terms of them not adapting, what comes to mind for me is I'm so always telling y'all, I'm one-on-one only. That is what I do. That is my business model. That is what I'm like, what I offer and nothing else. And within that, I'm so locked in. Like, that's the best way I can serve my clients. That is where my zone of genius is. That's the best way I know how to help people grow and scale to 6 and 7 figures. And within that, I also give myself full permission, and I kind of force myself to check in regularly on, and is this still true, or have things changed? There is absolutely a reality in which 5 years from now or a year from now, something might change and something new might present itself, or I might have new information, or I might have a new way that I want to work with people. And I think it's really important for us as business owners to both be so locked in on what we're doing and also so open and available to, as Adam Grant says, to think again, right? To reassess. So Sarah says, LOL, I think it did, ha ha ha. Oh my gosh, what was I? Oh yeah, the gas station part. I was like, what? I've like seen the comment a couple minutes later. Right, so before I go off on a tangent, that is what ChatGPT is. That is why I think it is important for us to think about it. I'm going to give one more example, thanks to ChatGPT. So we talked about Kodak, Blockbuster, Nokia is another one, but I actually think Nokia and BlackBerry are great examples, because I think for most of us who are at least my age, we probably remember having Nokia and I used to have a BlackBerry, and Nokia basically really failed to adopt the smartphone. And because of that, that meant they lost their shares to Apple and Samsung. So again, they were a thriving business, but smartphones were probably, I mean, who knows what the conversations were there, but it just seemed so foreign and like so a thing. Remember when smartphones weren't a thing? I remember when the smartphones weren't a thing, and I was like, who's ever going to want a smartphone? The other day, my husband and I were cleaning out our closets, and we found one of our old iPhones, and even that in comparison to like my big iPhone now, I was like, who ever used that tiny little iPhone? And that was still a smartphone. Anyway, I digress there, but that's just another example. BlackBerry, right? They were once a really dominant player in the smartphone industry, and they failed to keep up to date with touch-tone screens. And so that really caused them to lose, to kind of go into their decline compared to all Samsung and to Apple and to anyone who's using the touch screen. So again, we are not technological companies. We are mostly service-driven companies. I have a lot of clients who market offline. They're not even using the online space. So none of this is to say that everyone needs to hurry up and be super techie, or that you're going to lose business to companies that are more techie. That's not even our space. This, again, is more just to see, why is this even an important conversation for us to have? Why is Kim bringing ChatGPT when most of the time she talks about mindset and strategy, and she talks about messaging and marketing and sales? And right, when I talk about those pieces, why is this a conversation? This is why it's a conversation, because I think it's part of the way we think as a CEO, the way we show up as a CEO, the way we're approaching our business, and just something we want to, again, at least be aware of. And for those of you who are business coaches, I think, and like I'm a business coach, right? I think it's important for me to have this conversation and be as much as I can. I'm not going to be an expert in every platform or every tool, but at least to have a working understanding of it so that I can advise clients around it, or have a perspective or an insight. And so for those of you who aren't business coaches, I think it's more just, can I be aware of what's going on? And so that I can at least understand, make a really educated decision on if I want to use this or not. And as business coaches, again, I think it's just understanding enough so that you can support clients around, or at least have that conversation to help someone else know, should I use this as a tool, should I not? Sarah says, oh my God, sidekicks and BlackBerry, right? Gosh, I mean, I remember when I had a beeper, y'all. I was one of those people. I had a beeper like I was a drug dealer or something. I thought it was so cool. I thought it was so cool. So those are some examples there. Let's talk a little bit now about, I want to talk about the mindset, the aha that comes up around this, and then I do want to talk strategy a little bit, not even strategy on how to use ChatGPT. We talked about that briefly. I'll touch on that a little more briefly, but really more what I'm seeing as a result, as an impact of ChatGPT on our industry, and what that means for you and your strategy, whether you use this or not. So again, really briefly, what I was saying earlier, just in terms of the overall mindset, just remembering that the ChatGPT is a tool, and a tool is neutral, right? It's all in how you use it or don't use it. I think everyone uses this example, but a hammer is a neutral tool. It's whether you use it to hammer something into a nail into the wall or to hurt someone that makes it good or bad. People, I've heard from clients who are freaking out about ChatGPT because the narrative is it's going to take jobs away from people, right? People are going to steal IP. There's going to be no need to write new content. There's a lot of noise that comes up there, or like it's really evil, it's really bad. And what I want to say is, we want to remember it is a tool. Literally, it's a tool that we're teaching and have to learn how to use, but it is a tool. It's not good or bad. It's how you use it is the way I think can be a more neutral way to approach something. And the one second, a little a little a little dry there. And I think we just want to remember what I was saying earlier. With any new thing, our brains just immediately tend to have fear or resistance or stories come up. I mean, think about, for those of you, Sarah, I think we're the same age, probably remember when the internet first became a thing. Does anybody remember? My husband and I were talking about this, like Oregon Trail. I had to go to like a separate classroom to go play Oregon Trail, where it was like the computer room. And now like computers and the internet are a whole crazy thing. But when the internet first came out, right, that was a whole new thing. And I'm sure people freaked out about that. Crypto is still, I think, pretty new. And when people hear, like, people are freaked out about crypto. My friend who did the training on this, she uses the example of, her name's Jen, but she uses the example of horse and buggies to cars, right? I'm sure when cars first came out, from horse and buggies, people were so freaked out by the technology. I think planes are probably another example of that. And so I think just to see, like, just to normalize in your brain, if you're having any sort of a reaction to something like AI, that is normal, that is human. Our human response is going to be whatever is the same, whatever is familiar is safe. And we have to remember, even when something is familiar that doesn't serve us, right? This is how people end up in abusive relationships or in really shitty situations, because essentially what is familiar, the brain sees as safe because it is known. It is safe because it is known and because we know how to do it, and because it is not something new. When something new is introduced into our world, even if it is a new and positive thing, this is not the best example, because I hope this isn't triggering for anyone, but I think, again, this is an example of when people are in abusive relationships, that we can all agree is not a great thing, but it becomes familiar, so it feels safe. And when they remove themselves, sometimes that can be so challenging and hard because they don't have that familiarity there. And there's obviously a lot of other things going on there, but just so we can see, our human brains really just want everything to be the same. We want to be in our comfort zone, and not in a way of like, oh, you're lazy or you don't want to try new things. Literally, this is your brain's wiring for survival. And so new things, new experiences, anything foreign that comes into our world, it just kicks up our survival mechanisms. So I think normalizing that's really important, whether it's ChatGPT or it is showing up and going live for the first time, right? If you've never gone live before, the first time you do that, it is probably going to kick things up in your nervous system. And so I think normalizing that for what it is, and what I think has been really helpful for my clients, is using this really as a way to see what's going on with you and your brain. Again, I'm just not even that interested in if you use ChatGPT or not. I happen to think it's great. I think it is a great way to make life easier. I think it's a really great tool. I think it's like a team member where I can teach it very well to do things for me. And I think it's also not going to steal as many jobs as we think. I think if anything, it will create new jobs because it is a tool, and that it is as beneficial as the user who uses it, right? If I have a hammer and I think I'm going to be an artist and like sculpt something, or saw or chisel, right? That chisel, that's a better example. That is only as beneficial as I am able to use it to sculpt something. Otherwise, it's just a piece of metal and I'm going to make a janky piece of marbleized whatever I'm doing, or piece of wood, right? ChatGPT is kind of the same way. It's as beneficial as how the user teaches it and how the user knows how to use it. Canva's a great example, right? It's kind of as beneficial as you know how to make graphics and to use it. That being said, again, I'm going to keep saying this. I don't care if you use it or not. That's my personal perspective. I am interested in how you think about it and what's coming up for you, because that, more than anything, is what's going to impact you and your business. And so what I think has been really helpful for my clients is just to notice, oh, what is the resistance that comes up for me? What is the story that comes up for me when I hear about ChatGPT? If I have a client whose brain kicks up, ugh, like, that's so not fair. People are going to use that to create content, and that's going to make their life so easy. And like, that just seems so unfair. Isn't that fascinating? That probably has nothing to do with ChatGPT at all, and everything to do with the narrative they have around they need to work hard or things not being fair, right? Like, this is probably just shining a light on what's already there. If there is a client of mine who has this get kicked up where it's like, oh my gosh, this is going to take away jobs, and like, why is anyone ever going to hire me ever again? Isn't that interesting? It probably has less to do with ChatGPT and more to do with what is getting kicked up here. There's probably already a fear or a concern that there's scarcity, that there's not enough to go around, that people aren't going to hire them, right? If you hear about this and you think, oh my gosh, what does this mean for my IP, intellectual property? Everyone's just going to start copying me. Isn't this interesting, right? Like, yes, all of these things could be true, but all of these things already could be true. It's not like ChatGPT came in and made all of these things true or not true. It's that ChatGPT is a new, unfamiliar thing. And so it's kicking up some of these fears and stories you already have. And I think the reason I can say this is I can talk to 3 clients. This has happened over the last few weeks. And 3 clients are going to tell me 3 very different things about their response to ChatGPT. One thinks it's the most amazing thing ever. One is freaked out about what this means for like how hard she's working and how hard other people aren't working because they can use ChatGPT for content. Another one's worried about like jobs going away, right? Same tool, same platform, same time frame, 3 very different responses. And that's just how we know some of this is mindset stuff going on and really not. This is always how you know mindset stuff is going on. If you have a huge response and there's an emotional or thought response that is reactive, it is activating in some way, that's how you know it's mindset first and not strategy or not implementation or not the tool. Sarah says, I don't know what you were talking about. I'm forever young, no older than 29, LOL, haha. Yes, I remember Oregon Trail, LOL. I'm also 29 forever and ever. And we just like went to schools that were really outdated where you did Oregon Trail 10 years later, right? Or no, yeah, would that be 10 years later? That would be 10. I can't even do math. So laughing with you. So maybe you're not the same ages. Or no, we are the same age because we're both 29 for forever and ever. Even though I've told everyone how old I'm. Too funny. But I hope this is tracking for everyone. Just in terms of what I would just invite everyone to see, like, super normal. Don't make yourself wrong, whether it's ChatGPT or Clubhouse or going live or posting a sales post for the first time or getting onto a sales call or whatever you're doing in your business, speaking publicly for the first time on stage, when I was acting the first time I was on set, right? Anytime we're doing something new and unfamiliar, it is normal for fear or a story to come up. The invitation for you with something like this, especially since this is, at least I believe, I don't have a crystal ball, I could be totally wrong, I'm available to be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is AI that's going to stick. I think we are in a time of, it used to be in the time of cars and then planes and then the internet. I think we're just in a time where AI is going to become more and more sophisticated and more a part of our life, and I think it's going to become more and more a part of business. And so if that's the case and this is getting introduced, again, this just gets to be a conversation and we just all get to then use this as an opportunity, not to make yourself wrong, but also not to go bury your head in the sand, right? We don't want to be the blockbuster of our space, but I think this just gets to be the opportunity, not even to use it, but to see what's coming up for me and how can I shine a light on that and do some work there. Because if I have stories around you have to work really, 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 really hard, and that's what makes you money, and so I have resistance around using a tool that makes life easier, well, that's really interesting. That might be something you want to look at as a business owner. If I have a story coming up that this is going to take all the business away in my industry and no one's ever going to want to hire me again, okay, this is probably something we want to look at, whether you use that tool or not. So again, don't make yourself wrong. Make yourself human. I'm always saying to my clients, you are not AI. You are not a robot. AI can pretend to be human, but you and I are actually human. Of course, we're going to have our human response. We are the same age, LL. Yeah, I think we are. Sarah says, yeah, you have to keep up with the technology. 1,000%. And look, I mean, Sarah and I are joking about our age. I'm still very young, but I'm not as young probably as some of you. And it is my job as well. And I think think about the stores you go. I live in New York City, and there are a handful of places that still are offline, that still don't take credit card, that only take cash. And God bless them, because they're still figuring out how to make that work. And they are a dying breed in our city, and I think they stay around just because they're just so exceptionally good and specialized in what they do. And if it weren't because they serve like the best pasta you could get in the entire city and they've been around forever, if it weren't for something like that, the rest of those companies have gone out of business and been replaced by companies that take a credit card, right? And I think just even seeing how some of those things we just so take for granted because it's part of our time that it's normal. But we have to see how these were not always things that were normal in business, and what happens when we just aren't paying attention and just kind of refuse to adapt. Sarah says we have a few places like that here. They are mom and pop stores. And I think what's nice about that, Sarah, is it is an example and evidence that, like, and you don't have to adapt to technology. There's an exception to every rule. And I think we at least want to be aware of, right, those mom and pop stores, if they're not continuing to make the same money, right? If that pasta place I'm thinking about suddenly hits a place where they're like, we used to just be thriving and our revenue is going down, at least being available for maybe there's an opportunity for us here to implement some things that help make it easier for us to make money. So I'm going down a rabbit hole here. But with the mindset piece there, I hope that's useful and helpful for everyone. And just to think of this as, again, I don't care if you use this or not, but more noticing when there are large responses, reactions to something, whether it is something like AI or crypto or investing in yourself or putting yourself out there or even a new idea. How can you pause and notice, wait, what's the story I'm actually telling myself? What's the concern or fear I have here? Is this something that quite possibly could be a larger, more global story or fear that I'm having that might just be an opportunity for me to do some mindset work around or to do some healing around, so that overall I can address this? Because the way I'm going to continue to grow as an entrepreneur is to continue to expand the capacity for my discomfort, the capacity of my comfort zone. Who is it? I'm trying to think of who has the drawing where it's like the circle of the comfort zone, and then like the circle outside is like where you want to expand into, and then there's like discomfort or pain. But I'm butchering this example, but I think about this as business. Like if we start with like the nucleus comfort zone, the way you grow in business, the way you make more money is not, I think sometimes we think it's like, I get another degree, I learn a secret about marketing, and it's like most people are more than qualified enough at what they do, and marketing is not that complicated, y'all. I promise you. I'm really good at helping my clients with it, but what I'm often helping them with is simplify it and help them see what's true for them and like cut the fluff away and cut the noise in their brain away. It's not like I have some secret strategy that no one knows about. I know that's kind of annoying to hear, but that's just the truth. Like my job is more helping people unlearn stuff and like, again, get all the extra shit they want to put on top of stuff, like get the mud off the windshield so that they can see clearly for the few things to do. And the real thing I see that helps people blow up in business is not, again, getting another degree, not like getting better at what they do. You get better at what you do simply by doing it more and more. And it's not getting a better strategy. It's what we're talking about here. It's being willing to continue to take that nucleus of your comfort zone and expand it and expand it. It's willing to really think like a CEO, step into that role and keep showing up from that place even when something's new. It's that business owner who's willing to be innovative, who's willing to be brave, who's willing to try something and test it out and then see like, oh, this didn't work for me or did work for me or I fell on my face. So with something like this, I think it's just a great opportunity for all of us to think about that and to see where we have, whether it's with ChatGPT or not, where we have that opportunity to lean into our roles as a CEO, to stretch that comfort zone, that discomfort zone, so that it can then become comfortable. Sarah says exactly. Okay, so I did want to talk a little bit, because I know I've been talking mindset quite a bit. I want to talk a little bit before I go on the strategy side of things and just what I think this means, the impact for us on our industry, and what I think this means overall. Because I do think whether you use AI or not, I think this is going to impact some of the things that are working the best for us in our space. I also think ChatGPT aside, and this is not the live stream for this conversation, I've had this conversation in other live streams, but particularly the personal development coaching space, there is a lot of conversation right now about, are people who they say they are? Is it smoke and mirrors? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it really a pyramid scheme? There's quite a lot of that conversation happening. I've said this before, so I won't spend too much time on this part of the conversation. I believe in the coaching industry with my whole heart. It has changed my entire life. My entire life. I think I'm a different human. Probably, Sarah, I'm probably different than I was when you first knew me, because of the coaching industry, right? I'm still me, but like I've been able to heal in so many ways and create a life that feels really good and a business that feels really good thanks to the coaching industry. And I think it's, there's no barrier to entry in our personal development space. As business owners, there's very little barrier to entry when you come into the online space, whether you're selling coaching or you're selling a PDF, right? It takes very low overhead, very little barrier to entry, unless you are a lawyer or a doctor or someone who needs a CPA, who needs a certification. And so as COVID hit and more people moved to the online space, it just blew up. And so we just have more people. And so, of course, not everyone is who they say they are. And I think there's just more and more of that concern. And so then when you layer on top of that, right, that's already been part of the conversation. It's why I've opened up some limited spots for those free mini coaching sessions, because I just see what a need there is to put my money where my mouth is, but also to give people a safe way to experience what it's like to work with me, because it's easy for I can literally go say anything tomorrow on the online space and there's no one to police me, right? I could tell you that I made $1 million in a day and I don't know, make up some client result, and there's no one, there's like, I could be lying, I could not be lying. I'm always in integrity is one of my top values. It is one of the values I hold my clients to, but that's why I'm offering those sessions. I think it's a great way to put my money where my mouth is. And the reason I'm sharing this part here with the ChatGPT conversation is that conversation's already happening, right? It's already been going on. There's been some things happening in our industry, and then you add on a tool like ChatGPT, which means with someone who maybe isn't who I say I am. Let's just say I've no business coaching people around business. I have no experience in marketing. I have no experience in sales. I have no experience with mindset. I have no experience holding space. I can go into ChatGPT and tell it, like, write me some content as a business coach, write me some posts about how to sell, like, right? I can have ChatGPT create this content for me. And so this is where I think we want to be mindful as business owners as well, and know, so there's already concern in our space, and now we're adding on a tool. It's neutral. It's all in how you use it. I choose to use it as great. It's like having an extra team member. It can do some research like I just showed you. It can repurpose a piece of content for me. And people, obviously, any tool in the world, I'm sure we can think of lots of examples that we don't need to have a conversation about today, can use anything for good or for bad. And what this means in a space that is crowded and that is saturated, and I think got more saturated with COVID, right? Everyone moved online, where there's a lot of concern around, are people who they say they are? And now we have a tool that's only adding to that concern, where people are concerned about, IP being stolen, or, someone is being able to spit out content from this. This means, I think, again, I don't have a crystal ball. These are me taking a look at what I'm seeing through clients, through behind the scenes, being in business for 7 years, kind of connecting the dots. I think what this means is there's going to be an impact on our industry and just some of the things we want to think about as business owners with our marketing. This is one of the reasons I have been harping on messaging like a crazy person. I used to actually tell clients a couple of years ago, like, yes, your message matters, but like your mindset matters and showing up matters more. Like it matters, but not that it doesn't matter, but I wasn't quite as heavy on it. And I still think your mindset is 80% of it. I still think showing up in the embodiment of being a CEO, being, who you are, I think all of that matters more than anything. And I think given everything we just said, things like looking at your messaging and looking at your unique positioning in the market matter more than they did 3 years ago, because of all of these reasons, as a way to help people know why you. I also think looking at messaging that is no longer a generic. I think it didn't matter so much when I came into the online space 7 years ago if you were really generic, because there just weren't as many people. And it was sort of like I didn't know anyone who did mindset and business coaching when I came into this space until I found my coach. And I was like, oh my God, someone who gets me. I was literally like, it was like I had 3 heads when I told people that I combined mindset and strategy, right? And now this is just everything we hear all the time. And so, again, not a bad thing. I think it's actually a really great thing for our industry. I think it's great to start normalizing it's safe to hire people online. These are normal ways to work in business. And I think then what all of this means and some impacts are generic content and generic messaging, I think just isn't going to cut it the way it might have 3 years, 5 years ago. Our opportunities as business owners, if we're not wanting to be the blockbusters, right? It might not even be that you need to use ChatGPT as a tool. It might not even be about being more technologically savvy. I think what it means for us is more understanding what that technology is doing to our industry, and what that means for us in terms of just putting a little more effort into storytelling, into having a unique perspective, into thought leadership, and bringing your spin to things, as opposed to, I think we could just all phone things in a little bit more, or just kind of say what other people were saying before. Because I was talking about this with another client. There's nothing new to be said in business. There's new things all the time, but in terms of like we're all talking about messaging. We're all talking about content. We're all talking about sales. It's like these are like foundational principles are not going to change, right? Relationships, the mindset behind it, all of that's not going to change. But starting to look at and how can I start to bring my unique perspective, my unique positioning, my unique message, my unique story to this, I think is just going to matter more and more. I'm doing a masterclass next month. We'll start promoting at the end of this month, but it's going to be helping you drill into this words that sell, drill into this a little bit more. So we don't have to sign up. We have the sign up, but it's not live for y'all yet. But for this reason, because I think this is just something as business owners, it's just kind of like now is the time for us to like just revisit all of this, whatever stage of business you're at. So I think those are the really big things. The other piece I see, and just checking for, let me know if you have questions, anyone. The other thing I think for us in the service-driven space is, I think based on everything we were talking about, I think what's interesting here is this kind of has nothing to do with your messaging, and this kind of has nothing to do with ChatGPT at all, and everything to do with ChatGPT, and that I think ChatGPT and the busyness in our industry are what's causing this. And I just need a sip of water. I think the other thing we're just going to see more of and more of a need of is being willing to demonstrate value upfront of asking for payment. So I think we had a hot moment in our space, and I think there's still some people doing this who can get away with this, where it was sort of like, and I'm really trying to be mindful here to not throw shade on anyone, because I'm kind of neutral around this. I just find it really fascinating as someone in the online space who stays very focused and in my lane, just to witness what goes on around me. But I think there was a hot moment, and maybe there's still a little bit of this moment where you could just kind of sell things without a sales page and just put up high prices and expect people to like not know anything about it, and just based on you and your vibe and your energy want to throw money at you. And there might be brands that can still command that, and that is a beautiful thing. And I think for the majority of brands and for the majority of businesses, what this means, because of everything we're talking about here, and I think also people having bad experiences from things like that, is I think it just means we're going to return to things that have always worked in business, but maybe we've lost sight of, because I think we just kind of got into a place in our online space where it's like, how can I make as much money as possible doing as little as possible? And I think we're just going to return a little bit to like, this is not about burning out. This is not about you have to work a gazillion hours a week, but how can I put my money where my mouth is a little bit more? Again, that's why I open my calendar up to y'all. I'm fully booked, right? I'm doing this for a very specific reason. It's this right here. I also don't want to be a blockbuster in the online space, and I don't want to just be fully booked now. I want to be fully booked a year from now. And I really think being willing to just put some more value up front, whether that means original content, or being willing to get on a sales call with someone, or being willing to have a conversation in the DMs with someone, or being willing to spend, that 2 extra minutes replying to someone's email. I don't think this all has to look like one-on-one attention. I don't think this all has to look like everyone needs to go offer free coaching calls now, or even needs to get on sales calls, right? I have clients who don't need to get on sales calls, and that's not what this means. But I do think it means we're returning to a place where buyers, customers, clients are looking at, there is so much for me to choose from, and I don't know from this sea of stuff to choose from who is who they say they are, who just pumped out a sales page from ChatGPT, right? Like, I just don't know. And the only way I can know is if there's something original here, right? If there's something that's specific to this person that isn't what everyone else is saying, or if they're offering me some sort of taste or experience or way to get to know their work that shows me they are, what they're showing here on the front is what's kind of behind the paid gate. And so I think, again, this is not actually about ChatGPT, and also I think just because of different things that come up in our business, as business owners, I think this is where it's not always jump on the technological bandwagon as much as it is understand what the impact of that technology is on our industry, and then just what that means as business owners for how can we not become a blockbuster, how can we not become a Nokia who doesn't have the touch screen, or I think the touch screen one, but how can we just look at what does that mean that we can be really smart as business owners who want to stay relevant, but who also want to stay in business and who are who we say we are? Because I know everyone here is. Okay, I don't think there's any comments there, but those are my thoughts. Again, I am not a ChatGPT expert. I'm not here to tell you to use it or not use it or how to use it. I personally think it's amazing. I'm geeking out on it. I also geek out on crypto though. Like that's my brain. it's interesting. I'm pretty risk averse, but well, maybe that's not even true. I think I'm saying that. I don't think that's true at all. I moved to New York City without a job. I started my business. I'm into all of these things. I think I'm actually really fascinated by what's new, and I just like to get my fingers in things, try it out, and just see. And so I'm happy to be the guinea pig for everyone. I also don't think it's like if you use ChatGPT or not, it's going to make or break any of our business in this space. I do think it can be a very beneficial tool for some of you. And I think using it as a team member, I think it can cut down hours. I think it can make, repurposing content, I think it can make some of your life easier in business and really support you in that way. And I think the really big conversation I just wanted to close this with, and just the takeaway I hope you have from this, is twofold. One, just noticing what comes up for you, whether it's with ChatGPT or anything in our industry, and just see if you're having an emotional response, what is the story attached to that emotional response? What are you making whatever this is mean? What is the story? What is the narrative you're telling yourself? And is that serving you? Is that in fact true, or is that a fear? Is that a story? That becomes the mindset opportunity. This is literally what I support clients with all day, every day. This is how you manage your mind, right? And stay out of your own way as a business owner. And then twofold, just taking a look at, again, I don't have a crystal ball. I could be totally wrong. It could be that generic content is the thing that is the new wave that we all want to buy from, except for I just have this sneaky suspicion that is not the case at all, given that with or without what's going on in our industry, with or without it being busy and loud and crowded, with or without ChatGPT, these are just tried and true principles in business. Having a unique selling proposition, like I didn't make that up, right? That is just what businesses have and do. Having clear messaging that's specific to you, the problem you solve, the results you deliver. Having an original story, using storytelling, right? Like, these are just principles that are not like, oh, we just made them up. I just think because of what we're talking about, we're going to return to those basics and have an opportunity to drill into them and just do better than we all did before. And then I think with that, just being willing to put our money where our mouth is a little bit more with the value we're willing to put out there. And I hope for everyone hearing that's exciting and not scary. I know for me, it's so exciting. For me, Sarah, I don't know if you're still on, but I think maybe you'll understand this. I feel like it's sort of like Sarah and I both lived in LA. I don't think I'm saying anything that I'm not allowed to share. We both acted in LA, and that is just like no barrier to entry. People showed up every day and said they were an actor and got a headshot, right? And like that just meant like the city just got flooded. But one of the exciting things about that is I think it just meant for those of us who actually were serious about acting and had talent, yes, maybe it made it a little harder sometimes to get an agent or to get in the door for an audition. But I think what it also did is it forced all of us who we said we were, who had talent, who were serious about this, who wanted to treat this like a career, who were really great at what we did. I think it just forced us to dig in and hone our craft and to get even better at what we did and to be willing to go audition and to be willing to go take some of the action steps to say, you should hire me because I'm so good at what I do. And just to allow I mean this in not a mean, horrible way, but just the people who are just like showing up to like, this is a cool, fun thing, just to allow them to weed themselves out. And so I think that's a little bit of what's happening in our space. I see this as actually really exciting. When it's crowded, that means there's enough to go around. That means there are people who want to buy what you're selling. I live in a neighborhood where there's 4 pizza places on one block. There are 4 pizza places on one block because there are that many people who want to buy pizza, and one place cannot serve all of the customers and the tourists that come, so they had to open up more. There's room for all of those pizza places, but they all have to be different. They cannot all be the same pizza place, right? But I think like that's the beauty of it being busy. And I think this just gets to be a place where when I think about this, I'm like, great, you know what? I was really focused on the back end of my business last year. I didn't get to hop on a lot of free calls with people. I did a free course. It's now been 2 or 3 years ago. Like, I'm excited to see how can I put my money where my mouth is, because I know I'm great at what I do. And I just want an opportunity to get to be one of those people who's a voice for that and who gets to show that. So I think there's a way to embrace this and to see this as like, well, this is so cool because this just means I just get to like dig in a little bit more and like how fun for me is that? You don't have to have my mind center out of it. That's the way I see it. Sarah says, I'm here, you can share anything. I'm still an actor, horse farm owner, open book, LOL. I figured that wasn't too personal. And I loved the fact that you have a horse farm and you're such a talented actor, I just have to say. And Sarah says, yes, it really did. It definitely caused us to dig in and work for it. And of course, like it would be nice if we just moved to LA and they're like, there's 3 people here. and we were two of them, and we just got the starring roles on a show. Like, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I would have preferred that. But since that wasn't the case, I think the silver lining to it being so saturated was it caused that for both of us. And I don't think I'm like being weird to say I think we're both really talented. I think that helped us to be even more talented because of it. And so I think for everyone in the online space and with business, Nala says hi, Sarah says thank you, I appreciate it. It's so true. So true. But I think for everyone in the online space, I think it's the same thing. Like, of course, it would be great if you had no competition and there was only two of you, except for what's different than the acting industry is I don't know if that would actually be so great. When I first came in the online space, what I will say is there was a lot more work I had to do to help people even understand what coaching was, to help people understand that they could have a call on Zoom, to help people feel safe sending money via PayPal to a stranger that lived in another country, right? It was such a foreign concept to people that I think there was actually so much more work I had to do to even sell the safety of what I did. Whereas now I think that's done. Like that is like, of course people have concerns and fears, but I think what's beautiful is we don't have to worry about that anymore. And then I think it also just is what it is. We can't make it not saturated. COVID happened. This is the industry we're all in. And so I think for all of us, this will be my closing button. I think it just gets to be an opportunity for all of us to remember we get to decide at any point in time what the narrative is we tell ourselves, how we choose to look at a situation. The same was true with COVID. I lived in New York City in the epicenter of COVID. I wish COVID had not happened. We lost people. It was challenging. It was hard living here. And I had the opportunity during that time to decide what my narrative was going to be. Was I going to sing or was I going to swim? How was I going to navigate this? My business also blew up during that time, and I saw other businesses do the same. I think it's kind of the same thing here. This is obviously not a COVID situation. I'm not comparing it to that. But in terms of we are in a situation that our brain is going to kick things up with just kind of the state of our industry and with new innovation and technology coming in. And any time that is happening in business, whether it is something that is global or something for you personal, the opportunity for all of us as CEOs, who really one of our skill sets is learning how to manage our mind, is we get to decide what we're going to make that mean. And I think this just gets to be an opportunity for all of us to say, cool, bring it. This is when I get to thrive. This is when I get to dig in and get better at what I do, get more drilled into my messaging, get more drilled into my content, get more drilled into my positioning, get more drilled into my service, and just be like that much better for it. And that's the way I'm choosing to look at it. So you're welcome. You don't have to believe what I believe, but I'm choosing to see this as a really exciting opportunity and sort of like a healthy challenge to rise to the top. Sarah says, right, we were both very talented, and I think it has caused us to do what we do and really put ourselves into it. Yep. I want to talk about that a lot more, Sarah, actually coming up, just because I think I appreciate you for bringing that up, because I think as actors, we both ran small businesses, and I think being an actor and actress, the mindset you have to have and what you have to learn to be in that industry and to go through that, I think it just is a really fascinating mindset that I think is, like you said, really allows us to be where we're at now and pour ourselves into it. And I think such a different way than if I hadn't spent 10 years in LA acting. So I co-sign that 1,000%. Everyone watching now and on the replay, thank you for joining this conversation. I'd be very curious to hear from everyone. Thoughts on ChatGPT, like it, hate it. Like, I've never heard about it, Kim, so now I'm going to go check it out. If you do check it out, I would love to hear what you think. Definitely feel free to have conversations in our Facebook group about it. I think it's just such a cool tool, and for those of you who feel like you're more an expert on, I'm definitely using it well. I just don't feel like that's my zone of genius to teach y'all around, but feel free to support one another with that. And then if you have any questions, what I was chatting about with the mindset side of things, or just what my thoughts are on kind of where our industry is going, feel free to reach out. And if you're hearing this and you're like, you know what, Kim, I could use your support. I know I need help with the mindset side of things. I want to be that CEO. I want to be in that role of CEO. I want to show up as someone who is not only managing my mind, but looking at what's going on in the industry, choosing and deciding to see my work in a certain way and really showing up from that place so that I can run my business like a business and really evolve, adapt, stay current, but really also stay in my own lane. So I'm also not letting the noise spin me out. And I know I could use some support, even though I'm great at what I do. It's really tough for me to see the forest for the trees of my own messaging, of my own positioning, of my own marketing, of my own content, of my own sales process. That's what I support my clients with all day, every day. I need the same support. This is not I don't have the kind of work where I'm like, I know everything. It's more, you know everything in your business, and my job is to help you see what's true for you, see where the opportunities for you to adapt, for you to evolve, and to support you through that. I have some spots opening up in March. I think we have an intensive. We might have one-on-one spot opening up, and then in April, I believe we have a one-on-one spot opening up. So I'll drop a discovery call link. Please take me up on that. There's also floating around the group the link for the free mini coaching session. Those have been booking up, but I did open up a couple more spots, so there might still be some at the end of this month. If you want to take me up on one of those, please do. I'm loving getting to do those. And I love you all so much. Thank you for having this conversation. Happy Valentine's Day, and I will see you all next week. Bye.